can't manifest for anyone else.
Manifesting with someone else comes down to, can you have really honest communication?
We've hit on some tools here that we've never talked about before. A lot of reframes and a lot of tools that could be super actionable for 2025.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I'm so excited to kick off this episode today. This is a topic you guys have requested for quite some time. How do we manifest with other people? Whether it's our partners, our friends, our children, our coworkers, our business partners. What's the protocol? Does it work? And how do we navigate it? And really the root of this conversation is, how do we communicate and get on the same page so both people can get their needs met, which is really the root of what is going to move your manifestation process with another person even faster. I have a little protocol that I will reshare at the end of the episode, so stay tuned if you just want to hear that repeated again. But before we go into today, I just wanted to check in with anyone who is in the middle of our authenticity challenge right now, really reconnecting with who we are on a soul level. And from that place, what do we want out of life? How do we want to experience life? What do we want to see? What do we want to manifest? What do we want to feel on a day-to-day basis? I know I'm starting to get some big pings when it comes to my manifestations that I'm going to craft in my list for the next year. But I just wanted to let you guys know that you can join anytime. We have part 1 fully open for anyone to do those first 3 weeks. We are in our integration month right now, where we're encouraging all of our members to just really sit down and listen to your intuition of what deep imagining you need support of when. And then come January, we're going to be back together as a community and casting our list together. And perhaps for some of you, that might mean casting your list with another person. It's going to be such a good episode, really chock full of wisdom and a lot of tools of how to hold space and have that healthy communication with another person. Also, a big tool, if you are doing this, is the conflict deep imagining. You can find it inside the daily practice or our deep imagining playlists.
And now, a word from our partners.
To share a little mini manifestation story for you guys about how the Our Place Always Pan helped Daniel and I reconnect with our authentic desire to cook really good meals at home. So in our previous apartment, we had a super tiny kitchen. There wasn't a lot of storage space, so that meant very limited number of cookware items or things that we could cook with. And when we were in the kitchen, we were always slamming into each other. We always had a million dishes, and it became more of a headache than something that we truly enjoyed. And about a month before we moved, we got the Our Place Always Pan. It was in the clay color. It's super chic. It's beautiful. You actually want to leave it out on the stove because it looks so good, which in a tiny kitchen helps with storage a lot. And it's a 10-in-1 pan, which means you can saute, sear, bake. Yes, that means you can put it in the oven, braise, fry, boil, roast, strain, and steam. It comes with a little strainer pot so you can steam it and strain your noodles or anything you want. And you can serve directly out of it because it is so gorgeous. And best of all, and honestly most importantly of all, it's non-toxic, which means there's no Teflon, there's no PFAS, there's no chemicals that is in any of the lining of the pan, any of their appliances, any of their cookware, anything that you'll get from this brand. They're completely non-toxic, healthy, and sustainable choices. so many other pans on the market almost greenwash or say that they don't have a toxic chemical in their lining, but they actually do in the main pan, or different parts of the pan have toxic chemicals attached to it. This one is completely non-toxic and chemical free, which is such a relief when trying to cook healthy meals to also not be adding chemicals while you are cooking them. I also am obsessed with the way that it cooks food. I am someone who loves making my eggs and my omelet in the morning. I cannot live without it. And the way that a pan cooks an egg tells me everything about how much I'm going to use that pan. And I am telling you, I have cooked on a lot of different pans in my life, even some other non-toxic brands out there, and nothing cooks my eggs better than the Our Place pan. I highly recommend it. Daniel has been cooking everything in it. And since we moved to our new place, we haven't stopped cooking with it. We have used it literally every single day, multiple times a day. It's so easy to clean and wash off. And it truly is my favorite pan of all time and thing in our kitchen. And it really helped reignite this passion we have for cooking food at home, which I truly would have thought was just not part of my authenticity. And it turns out it actually really is. I just didn't have the right pan. Our Place is having their holiday sale right now. Save over 35% on your order through January 12th. Head over to FromOurPlace.com/TBM and see why more than 1 million people have made the switch to Our Place. With their 100-day risk-free trial, free shipping, and free returns, you can shop with total confidence. Shop the Our Place holiday sale right now. That's FromOurPlace.com/TBM.
All right, on to the episode.
We have Janelle and Lacy on today. We are going to touch in on what it's like to manifest with someone else, whether that's a partner, a child, a friend, a business partner, your coworkers, whatever it is. What does that process look like? How is it different? And how does it connect? But before we jump in, since we're in the midst of the authenticity challenge, I wanted to check in, Lacy and Janelle. How are you guys doing? What's coming up for you? Give us a little check-in for everyone too.
Yeah, I mean, I was just sharing before this call, I am getting hit with literally, it's like usually with the universe, you know, when a big manifestation's coming through, it'll hit me with one big test that's usually a pattern. Have you really healed this? Are you non-reactive to this anymore? Yes, I feel my feelings, but are you going to stay up all night? Are you going to ruminate on it? Are you going to rehearse in your mind all night? Like, is it going to take over your whole nervous system and existence? And right now, the universe, after starting this fucking challenge, is sending it on every, like, no, I'm like, are we in Mercury retrograde too? I don't know what's happening.
I think we're in some kind of retrograde.
We must be in some shadow phase or something. But anyways, I shared this in my Authentic Code Roundup this week. It's trying it in all of the places that I usually get triggered. All of them. It's so there must be something pretty big that's wanting to connect right now. But I mean, just for example, like I've been sharing my manifestation journey on this farm thing. That's my full list, right? And I've worked with our real estate lawyer throughout the whole process. He reads all the contracts. It's like a big buy. So it's not easy. It's not straightforward. You know, it's 200 acres. So it's like definitely like you're looking at a lot. I wanted second eyes on that. And everything's been all good. There's been an easement we've known about the whole time. And literally when title, we're supposed to close today, when title went to record the easements, they slipped in 2 easements. So one that we have no knowledge of. And this means that like timber people could be driving through our property with semis up to the lot next to us to get the trees and drive out, like just a lot of chaos, right? And currently my bridge property up there was an easement that I wasn't super educated on of this neighbor next door who is, I mean, nuts. Has not left the woods, you know, like the deep forest in maybe 20 years. She's nuts, poor thing. Yeah. There was a lot of compassion at first. There's very little now, but I have an easement currently, not to get too boring, but it's constant boundary pushing. So the universe is like, are you gonna walk away or not? So basically, I'm at this point today where my lawyer had to write to them and be like, contractually, this isn't gonna fly. Sorry, you know, so it's either they go, cool, we're gonna lift that easement, no problem, let's close the deal. I walk, or a lawsuit. And to me, energetically, I, in this moment, am perfectly normally in the past, I would have lost it. I would have lost it and all the things, and I would have been codependent and dog paddle. Who cares about the easement? Whatever, all this low self-worth behavior. And in this moment, I'm like, universe, really? This is so obvious. I'll walk. If not this, something better. And I feel really peaceful with that and really trust muscle in knowing with that. So that's just one of many. And I think you were sharing, Janelle, that you're getting hit with.
Oh, totally.
I mean, just for anybody listening, that's just how this shit works, right? Like the moment you start, you cast that list, which we haven't even done yet, right? We haven't even done that as a group. We won't be doing that until the second part of this challenge in January. But the moment you start to do this work on the authentic code, you're unblocking, you're redefining your authentic code, you start this, and this is how it works. Just reminding anybody out there who's doing this challenge with us, we're side by side with you. Like I'm no exception. Janelle isn't. Jessica isn't. Like, let the games begin. Here we are. We're creating a ton of magnetism, and therefore we're receiving tests because something big wants to come through.
Yeah, no, it's the same exact thing. I've been in my perfect worst case scenario test, of course. I'm manifesting a new office space. And I am very, very mold sensitive. So I have to get places tested before. And my boundary is that I have to have a very, very clean space. It's just what it is. And I've just kind of had to have radical acceptance around it. So the test is around honestly surrendering and waiting for the perfect space that I really love, that is cute, that feels aligned, and also is very clean, like clean to the level that I need it to be for my nervous system to feel safe. So it feels kind of like, oh, am I being like picky, or all of the old stuff? Am I being like honestly anal? Unfortunately, like it's just what the reality of what my body needs. And so having to surrender it over and over again, and even the timeline of it too, to go, just like Lacy said, like if it's not this, something better, and can I just wait and relax for that divine timing and just surrender to the process, which is really, as you all know, very hard, very hard to do.
Even though we haven't officially crafted our list, people are starting to craft that manifestation pings list of things they think they want. But even just fortifying your authentic code, where are you doubling down on your authentic code? Where are you leaning more into that? And I feel like those are the places and spaces I'm getting tested, where it's like, once I really fortified my code words, cool, home's one. All right, we're going to shift up and everyone wants to stay with you through the holidays. And this is what it's going to look like. Can you get your calm, serene home space and maintain your boundaries? One interesting thing that might be useful to people, so I hope my mom doesn't mind me sharing this, but I wanted to have her over for Christmas and have her for a certain number of days, and to make the haul from the East Coast to the West Coast. For her authenticity, she was like, I need to stay out here longer. And so ultimately compromised, and she got an Airbnb so she could still stay, but I could still have my time, and she's going to stay out here longer. But it was interesting because as I was navigating this test, one, it was challenging to tell my mom, hey, I can't host you for 2 weeks. I need a little bit more solo time by myself. And then she received that really well. And she was like, okay, cool. Here are my needs. And it got me thinking about the conflict DI that we just dropped, and how in a conflict, two people have opposing needs. In this dynamic, my need was, I need freedom and space to enjoy my break. I definitely want to see her, connect with her, spend quality time, but I also need that, like, no one's checking in. I don't need to do anything. There's no pull or tug. I can just have total freedom for a couple days. And her need was, if she's going to fly this far, she needs spacious time to be out here, ample time to really enjoy, like, let it be her holiday. And so when you're faced with those sort of, okay, our needs conflict, it's not whose need trumps the other or takes over. It's like, how can you find that compromise? And even though she's coming out here longer, my work now is, okay, can I still take those times to just be by myself and not feel guilty or codependent, like I need to take care of her or go see her or whatever, and just really say, okay, today, Mom, I need a solo day. I will see you tomorrow. I love you. And that's my job. That's my responsibility to manage my own emotions on that level, especially as people are navigating family through the holidays or all those different things, how can you not have one need go on top of the other, but how can you have the need and sit in the growth edge of like, how can you meet your own needs too?
Yeah. I mean, that's what mirror work is, right?
Yeah.
For everybody, that DI is just so good based on nonviolent communication. It's fabulous.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked it out, even if you're just feeling irritated towards someone and you're not necessarily like in conflict, it's so good to see what that irritation or annoyance or anger is bringing up in you to meet your own needs and to really process that anger. Janelle had an amazing pushing the wall exercise, which just releases so much in there that was added. So highly recommend it this season. So, we get this a lot. And I think as people are starting to craft their list for 2025 or start to get pings of what they want to put on there, some of that involves manifesting with other people, whether that's you have a partner and you're manifesting a home, or you have kids and you want to manifest a vacation or travel or things for your home, whether that's a business goal with a business partner or a trip with your friends or a fun experience with friend groups or even something with your family. Like there's this co-manifesting dynamic that can fall into play. How do you see manifesting with others? And I guess the biggest tips we're going to go into in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing easier than manifesting on your own, straight up. Honestly, that can be really hard if your inner child's fully in the way, right? Because of old stuff that you're needing to unblock and heal and integrate. So there's truly nothing easier than manifesting on your own. And that parlays into even when you're partnered or a parent, and let's say in positive scenarios, but even if you're partnered and parent in pretty negative scenarios as well, if you're calling in something that is totally achievable only by yourself, not only totally achievable by yourself in exclusion from your children or your partner, that's still pretty easy to manifest on your own, a pair of jeans or whatever. However, if there are constraints due to your partnership financially and being a parent, that can hinder a little bit. But let's just say you have abundance, your portals are open and you're flowing financially. Anything that doesn't require the happiness of your partner or children is still quite simple to manifest when you're in your magnetic self, your authentic magnetic self. But when you do want to call in things that also pertains to them, and it usually falls under the bracket, we say money and love are always connected in this brand. They just simply are, because they're both totally related to security, in the sense that the one thing we want the most as humans is to be loved, and the second thing is security in order to survive. So everything that falls under the love bracket, this is just a refresh if you're new to the brand, everything that falls under the love bracket is not just a love partnership. It's also family relationships, child-parent relationships, caretaker relationships, anything that it takes up love space in your life. And on the flip side, money, it's anything to do with security. It means home, money, salary, anything to do with finances, trips, travel, things you want to buy, blah, blah, blah. That's all under money. And they're totally connected. So another refresher, where you're blocked in one, you're usually blocked in the other, and they're balancing each other out all the time. So anything that pertains to manifestation in those realms, if you're partnered and you have children, or if you're partnered and don't have children, or just have children and aren't partnered, those things are going to require that you manifest together, which we're going to get into.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful to know how much we can manifest on our own, not needing to do it with another person. It's not like you're going to tag team with another person to make it move faster. Your connection to the universe, it sounds like, is going to be your fastest route. But if you have that other thing that you're manifesting with someone else, how can you go about it intentionally, taking care of your side of the street, or all of those pieces? One of the tips kind of in protocol that we sort of came up with here is what you can do when you start to manifest with other people. So one, get really clear on your list together. So really setting that intention together as a unit is so important, because I think what happens is one partner will be like, well, I really want to manifest this travel. And then they're looking at their partner like, why aren't you doing anything? But did you even agree upon what you wanted, what it meant to you? What were the non-negotiables? Was anything out of, ego? Does it align with your authentic code? Can you get on the same page? And even if your partner doesn't do the work, can you get super clear on what both of your needs are in the dynamic? I feel like even addressing that as a first stop, you'll get a lot of clarity about how far away you are from the manifestation.
One other thing I want to jump in there based on what you said, to do a family authentic code, a relationship authentic code, just so that your values are aligned, really taking the same inventory we take inside of this challenge on the authentic code day, you could sit there and do with your partner, or you could sit there and do with your children and really come up with that thing together. Because like I do, I filter everything through that. I'm getting at it would help the process of manifesting together, because like Jessica's saying, you guys would be able to filter out more quickly. Is this ego? Like the stage Max and I are in right now with 2 small children, I'm always like, yeah, there's abundance. We can go travel if we want. It is so hard to do together. That's why we have a couple of different homes that we go to and visit that we're also leveraging and making money off of. But so it's like on our authentic code, we probably wouldn't have a trip to Europe. Like travel wouldn't be the top one for us, right? So when everybody can sit down and put that together, I think it's just going to help have a quicker northern star together. When you do that, even just that simple exercise together, say you're doing this challenge with us right now, and you're like, I did just do my authentic code. Would your partner and or children are all together, or you could do it because you probably know the answers to most of those. You could create that. It would start to create some magnetism. That's what the energetics I'm hearing. It's like simple exercises like that and doing it together could almost already start the familial magnetism or the relationship magnetism together. So that's just like a little segue I wanted to say.
I love that. I think that's so cool. Someone else wrote about that too, of like having an authentic code for your relationship or your partnership and what that looks like. And I think it can be so helpful and so important. There's something about both people being on the same page and understanding each other's needs and respecting them without bulldozing. Because I think one of the sticking points that happen when you're manifesting something together, it's like, well, I want this, and this other person's over here like, well, I don't want that. Well, now you're blocking my manifestation. But in partnership, it's like, okay, are there creative ways for both people to get their needs met? And I mean, really manifesting with someone else comes down to, can you have really honest communication and hold space for each other's needs without trying to dominate, have both needs at the table? And if you can start off the manifestation process from that super clear place, wow, we both feel aligned, we both are supporting each other, I think you can manifest pretty damn quickly at that point. I mean, granted, you both have to go through your blocks and expansion and aligned action, but still.
Yeah. What do you see in your practice, Janelle, about this? Like, what are the key things you see? I'm sure many people are coming in that are in partnership and or are a caretaker of a parent or a whatever. Like this applies to anything that is taking up the love space in your life. That could be a best friend, that can be a parent, it could be so many things, because that's going to apply to manifesting if you have this other energy that is having to play into your energy to achieve what you want.
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind on this topic is people coming in with ultimately major grief and in the bargaining phase of wanting to manifest for someone else. I love that idea of like, okay, what are our aligned values and creating an authentic code for a couple, family, all that's so freaking cool. And you're right, that can be really easy when there's communication flowing. I think the really pain point, and the people probably even drawn to listening to this episode, is the major grief of, I want to manifest for my mom, my dad, my best friend, my partner, my whatever. And I can see where they're stuck and it's driving me crazy. And how do I reconcile that? And, I'm wanting the magic saying like, yes, you can manifest for them by doing X, Y, Z. And like the reality is a very, very harsh, painful reality is that you can't manifest for anyone else. I think though, that as you process your grief and your pain and your blocks around that, I actually do think that it frees you up in your own way to manifest. I think that that can be like the tension of just the grief and the struggle of it versus moving into a place of grief and surrender and looking at your side of the street frees you up to be at peace regardless of what they do. And actually, in some weird ways, it actually can, if it's true surrender, actually kind of break up that dynamic where the energetics are moving and that person is able to, on their own, without any controlling, manifest.
Absolutely. I see this actually, I've seen this with my mom. It's a great example. She's very deep and stuck in her trauma. She's never been able, it's such a deep uphill battle she'd have to go through. She's like, fuck it in this lifetime. You know, like I'd rather just drink instead, you know, which is what she's done for the last 25 years. But it's so interesting because as a codependent child of an alcoholic, that was my number one thing I wanted to manifest. That's the one person you love the most and you want to, you know, it's all the things that we know and talk about. But I will say through doing a tremendous amount of unblocking and integrating and releasing any need around that and any pressure on her, I then am not only now an expander, a massive expander, I also am somebody who she gravitates towards wanting to do the things. Like when she's in my presence, she's doing things she's never done. She's so inspired. That's the word we come back to and use a lot. You can inspire other people to manifest that you are close to. And it really does come from your own level of totally letting go of their journey, doing your own unblocking, doing your own expansion, most importantly, doing your own manifesting. That's what's going to expand them the most, to be like, wow, whatever they're doing is amazing, and getting into your energy, caught up into that inspiration. But yeah, you just nailed it. Many people probably listening to this episode are like, how do I manifest my husband doing this, or my wife doing that, or my partner this, or my ex, or my best friend, you know, or my child. That's one of the hardest ones, I imagine.
I think that's really important that we name that. And also getting clear on like, are you trying to manifest for someone else, or are you actively manifesting something with someone else? The two of you together, or the family unit together, is manifesting that trip or that thing or that experience. That's kind of like your step one of like, are you trying to solve their problem? Are you trying to fix their life in some way? That's when you have to really worry about your side of the street and just support them the best you can. But then when you're manifesting with someone else, so back to my list, I'll go in here because I got sidetracked in it. But I would say 1, authentic code. Can you craft an authentic code that feels like your North Star? 2, get really clear on the specifics, why you want them on there, how you can set that list together. 3, take care of your side of the street. This is where so many people write in are like, my partner doesn't do TBM. Can we still manifest together? I'm unblocking, expanding, taking aligned action. Do the process as if you were doing it alone. And then if you want to connect back of like, hey, this is a test, or, ooh, look at this opportunity, or I got an idea to do that. You can share in almost like the language of TBM with your partner without forcing their experience or making them sign up for the program immediately. You can still manifest with them, allow them to move at their own pace. The other step I would say is have check-ins, you know, whether it's once a month, like our monthly check-in, be like, okay, what tests popped up? Maybe clue them into what a test is. What expander is presented? Is there any aligned action going on? Are we still in sync with our timeline? Are we still on track with this? Are we both working towards it? And then the other thing I would say is loving communication is so, so important in this dynamic.
Would you say that nonviolent is your favorite version, or Imago? What's your favorite tool for loving communication?
I would say nonviolent is really good. I wrote this in the newsletter that's going to be coming out, but allowing their truth to be their truth. So especially when you're crafting the list or whatever's coming up, when they're saying, oh, okay, I want this, there can be the impulse to be like, well, don't look at it that way, or why didn't you pass the test this way? It's like, instead of trying to curate their experience, be the loving support system to them and just the witnesser, not the fixer of the dynamic. So instead of like, oh, but you're still repeating that pattern. That's so irritating. Okay, I need to work on what I'm irritated by. And then I can say, oh, okay, tell me about that experience. Yeah, that sounded really challenging. All the stuff that we do in the DIs, the reparenting work, that is kind of how you want to show up in those communications, because they can feel tense, especially if one partner or person in the dynamic is not doing the work and they don't know how to navigate their blocks. They're going to feel exposed. They're going to feel vulnerable. They're going to feel like you're judging them. So can you have a judgment-free space to connect around the manifestation? Because the last thing you want is the manifestation to be the source of conflict and pain or suffering between the two of you. How can you make it this exciting thing that you guys are doing together? And then the last sort of step I'd say is if things feel stagnant, if you set all these intentions, everything was great, you're moving forward, taking care of your side of the street, and your partner is just really kind of gave up trying or isn't helping in some way, the test there is not fix all of their tests, but can you communicate to them what your needs are? Hey, let's go back to why we needed this manifestation. Let's go back to what our goals were here. I think we maybe have gotten off track. And can you have an open space where you can really just put those egos aside for a second and just see the goal is to get both of our needs met. That is the ultimate goal. It's not for one person to be right, for one person to get their way. How can we both see that the goal is to get both needs met? So let's get curious of possible solutions.
I love that. I mean, that's so, that episode done. No, I'm kidding. It's so actionable. It's so good. Well, to follow up on that, Janelle, I mean, those action steps are so valuable. You are seeing in real time daily why those things are challenging. That's what Jessica's suggesting is so evolved. Janelle, what would you add on to that for people who are met with resistance? Because I think that Jessica just lined out literally, that's the show notes. Perfect actionables. But if you're met with resistance from those spaces, what would you suggest beyond that?
Yeah, so those are defense mechanisms that pop up and that will, and we all have them that all pop up. And so to me, there's I'm sorry to be such a nerdy broken record, but nervous system component to it of when you're in that dysregulated fight or flight space, you're not in your open, curious, all of that. And so it's easy when two people come together and a trigger happens. This is then you have two people dysregulated. Really, conflict and all of that is a art form. It's an art form. When you reframe it to be a practice that you grow and you deepen and whatever, to me, there's okay, I just got dysregulated. They just got dysregulated. If anyone's around me dysregulated, I'm present to their dysregulation, but how do I internally regulate myself without them even knowing? I have a reactive 13-year-old at times, right? And so how do I stay regulated internally? I can go, whew, and then be able to regulate myself to then be able to kind of co-regulate, not in a codependent way. And this is with my child, but even with a partner too, there can be times where it's appropriate to kind of okay, let me hold space and regulate. And knowing that when someone's back in a state of regulated, then they can hear you, they can be open, and then there's conversation reflows again.
It's so funny because all of the tools you just gave, Jessica, are what I do to parent, essentially, and then same for you, Janelle. Yeah. And, you referred back, Jessica, to everything we do in those DIs, the validate DI, the inner child DI. Those are the tips of how to start to change that habit of a dynamic you may have if you're met with defense mechanisms or tension.
And I think you can even start to see some of those interactions as you're going through as the tests for the team, the friendship, the unit, the partnership, the family, whatever it is, as you're going through. Sure, you can each get your own internal tests that are going on. Maybe you get an opportunity test. If you're manifesting, let's say, a home together, you'll have actual physical home tests. But some of those tests along the way is okay, can you work on having a regulated conversation with each other? Can you work on that open communication with each other? All of that stuff is going to help your manifestation process, and you can almost see those opportunities of connection as little tests of places to grow, ways to heal, ways to integrate. Obviously, no one is perfect at this, and it is one of the most challenging things, especially in romantic relationships, to have that healthy communication, navigating conflict with ease. The conflict DI is going to be so good for you guys navigating with a partner or anyone for that matter of fact, because it gets you to reframe and go back to, wait, I have a need here that's not getting met. Let me attune to that for a second. They probably have a need that's not getting met. Okay, how can I relate to this differently and attune to my needs first? I think that's so key and so important.
Yeah, I think it's so hard when you're activated to truly be present. There's times where in conflict, I'm already thinking of my response and my answer and why that's wrong. If you've ever done like imago therapy work, Casey and I did a number of that last year and it was super helpful, but it really is like a hard practice of like, okay, I have to fully separate from and be completely present and really attuned to their experience and their truth and put my stuff aside. It's so hard. I feel like a secret weapon for all of this before any big conversation or fight or, discussion you might have with anyone is the validation DI. That's the first thing that's going to give you some soothing and to be able to go, maybe the truth is they don't see my reality yet. Or they can't see, there's a limitation to not being able to see my reality. And I'm so hurt by that. And so let me self-soothe and regulate that through so then I can meet them where they're at. And once I meet them where they're at, there might be a window. There's more hope at that point for them to be able to see or not. We'll see. But it does help. It does help ground you for those big conversations.
It's that time of year again when so much is going on, the stress is high, you're seeing so many people that I'm needing the support from my favorite apothecary. Anima Mundi is composed of organic, wild-crafted, ethically grown botanicals that are sustainably grown with over 200 different types of herbs from around the world. Founded by Costa Rican herbalist Adriana Ayales, who has been extensively studying healing traditions alongside master herbalists and shamans for 13 plus years. She started out in Brooklyn, New York, and has made a mission to bring these ancient remedies to the modern world. So not only do I love everything that Anima Mundi is doing in terms of their business, how they're sourcing their materials, how they're bringing wellness and holistic healing from ancient remedies into modern day and preserving those traditions in such a sacred way, but their products are so incredible. The highest quality is so potent and really, really work. These are some of the favorites I've been using this season. Their Relax Tonic, which has been an absolute must. This really supports your nervous system. If you are in a state of never-ending to-do lists or tasks or things that you have to accomplish this season, whether it's holiday decorations, family coming over, this is going to help slow everything down and give you that support for your stress. It has lemon balm, passion flower, chamomile, ashwagandha, and lavender, and really just eases your mind, body, and soul whenever you take it. Then I have been loving their Margot digestive bitters. I take a little dropper on the tongue before eating that heavy meal or eating something I don't typically eat, and it helps to stimulate digestion. It also helps support your liver with inflammation, with metabolism. It helps with detoxification. There's also ginger in there to even support your digestion even more. It's so helpful to make sure you're digesting all your food properly. Then the last two I'm loving that I've been incorporating with my TBM process is their heirloom cacao. I'm pouring myself their incredibly medicinal, spiritual cacao before I go in to do my TBM practice, to really have an intention, to have a moment of stillness and silence with myself. And then the other part I'm loving is their blue flower of intuition tea, their blue lotus tea, which has been known to connect you into a deep meditative energy, open up the third eye, connect to lucid dreaming. It also helps tap into intuition. Really, I see it as something that calms your nervous system down so your intuition can come online. Check them out online. You can go to animamundi.com or you can check out the link in the show notes. They have tons and tons of medicinal botanicals that can help you this time of year, or they're amazing for gifts over the holidays. And we have a discount code for 20% off. Use code TBM20 for 20% off. Check the link in the show note and put TBM20 in checkout and enjoy. Let's dive into some of the questions. So, Janelle, I would be curious your thoughts on this one too, specifically, because I know you manifested through this, but manifesting a partner who is also going to become a father to my son. How do I manifest with a toddler or children in general? How did you navigate it, Janelle? Because you went through this too.
Oh my God, you guys, I was so freaking protective. Casey's the only guy that August ever met. I waited a really, really long time before that introduction, but there was a point that I had to cross where I wasn't sure, and I had my own traumas and my own stuff, and I had to take a risk, a very calculated risk of, am I ready to introduce even though I'm not 100% confident? And that was really hard. Going kind of well, if it doesn't work out, is that going to be okay? Am I going to beat myself up in guilt and shame because I just introduced this person to my kid? All of that stuff was really big for me. But it was so funny. I remember there's a one point that it was oh, this is mommy's friend Casey, right? So mommy's friend Casey was around for a while, and that was it. There was we were so platonic, and it was so cute. I remember he was in the backseat of the car driving, and he's like, are you going to have a boyfriend or something? And I was like, oh, why? Do you think I should have whatever? He's like, yeah. And I think it should be Casey.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, so that was for me okay, somehow he knew and he was saying he was ready for it. This is such a tender space with your babies and being protective, and you want to have the freedom to figure it out. And then there's really big consequences for the kids instead of being mindful of that. It's so tricky. It's so tricky, you guys.
Tricky. And I think even one of the biggest, quickest answers to that is if you haven't done your own work and elevated enough consciousness, because I also see friends and many people I know who introduce everyone to their children. And there's not a lot of safety there. And it's not their fault. It's just the level of healing and integration they're at so far. So for the person, calling in that partnership, you're only going to manifest a Casey, someone who really shows up for your child and is an incredible step parent that can co-parent with you if you are in that space, if you've arrived at that space, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely same thing. I think the other thing that just keeps pinging in my head is, just like you have your list for your partner, have your list for how you want them to interact with your kid. It seems very obvious, but I just want to make sure to name it, that there should be a list of, I want them to interact like this. I want my kid to feel safe around them. I want them to feel like they have someone to look up to or a role model, whatever the things are that feel really true to you. Yeah. And then the other thing is just, it's okay to take time to introduce them. It's okay to take time and wait it out. You don't have to rush it or push it. It's not going to delay your relationship. Really be attuned to the kid's needs. Put extra safety net around for the kid.
I have one of my best friends that does this work, and she was a single mom of 3 kids. Actually, it was right after the challenge. This was a while ago that she manifested her now fiance. And this guy is a dream step parent. He's just absolutely, I could cry about it thinking about her. She's getting married next year, but she actually introduced him quicker, but her kids were teenagers. They also moved really, how fast they wanted to move in and all of that. They were so mindful because to really slow it down. So that was rough for them of okay, they were so aligned. It was so right. And yet they were being sensitive to one of the kids that needed it to go at a slower pace. It's just been so beautiful to watch all of the relationships progress. So yeah, the mindfulness, the intention of it, because everybody's story is going to be so different.
Okay, next question. So crafting the list together, creating a shared vision, honoring each other's personal boundaries and desires, is it appropriate to make compromises or concessions about certain things? Lacy, I'm even thinking about your home stuff. You and Max manifesting that. Were there certain things where, how can someone identify, okay, I'm settling, or this is the compromise that we're making right now?
Yeah, or bridge, right, until the other person arrives. It's so interesting. Gosh, to me, I think I would look at that as bridge. That's how that would be my goggles, right? Because a bridge is the bridge expander, bridge manifestation, etc. These are things that we manifest in between the North Star that we want that is going to expand us into achieving that. And to me, that is a compromise, but it's a compromise in the direction of my authenticity. So that's how I would look at that, honestly. I know it's not directly correlated, but I do this with Max all the time, and I'm now doing it with children. I think about this. I'm an Aquarius. I sit and dream about the day. And I know when I'm in this, I'm going to sit and just miss where I am right now. But I think about the day that I'm sitting in my Mendocino home by myself, taking a bath. My kids are wherever, like they're in college, they're back in high school, and I've taken a week by myself up there. It's what I used to do in Mariposa, when I first got the forest house. And I know that I'm a ways out from that. So right now I'm navigating the schedule that feels right going up there for Max's work schedule and also kids' school schedule. That's what that's going to look like for me for the next so long. But that place was our compromise. And I still wonder if one day when I'm older, there will be a Scotland place, right? But I knew when I was calling in this farm, I knew that it had to be in a cold weathered, dramatic, weathered, by the ocean place. That's what Scotland represents to me. And the rain, the coziness, cooking the bread at the fireside, like that's what I needed after living in LA for now almost 20 years, or 20 years actually. So it's so interesting. It's just a really good hindsight perspective that Mendocino is in Scotland. That would be my North Star. When I first got the place that we have up there right now, prior to this farmhouse that is my full list, that was a bridge. So a lot of manifesting with children and partner, after you get authentic and follow the steps that you were saying, Jessica, I think much of it is a bridge. You can start to use that word rather than compromise. And I do imagine, who knows how my authenticity is going to change as I grow. But let's just say in this moment right now, who I am at this moment and what I crave authentically, to me, Scotland still seems like the most nourishing place on the planet. So to me, sitting here right now, I'm like, yeah, maybe in my 50s, mid 50s, I'll be spending half the year there. Who knows? Maybe in my 60s, so everything between then is a lot of bridging until that moment. But still, when I'm in Mendocino, in our space, it feels glorious. It's not an old stone farmhouse in Scotland by the sea, but it is that in the Highlands, but it is so similar to that, but it's a lot of bridging. So I would almost use the word bridge in place of compromise as you're working together. And that's the fun. This is one thing that I hope people are feeling into during this challenge season. Manifesting is fun. It's fucking hard work, for sure. Anyone that's out there thinking you're going to think positive and manifest, the joke's on the universe thinks the joke's on you. But it's fun. The fun part about this is, and it's not super present, but the fun part about this is there's still so much more out there to manifest. You know what I mean? There's still stuff. So it's like just also looking at that as fun, and in between as compromise, not compromise, but as bridge.
I love that reframe.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our Trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the magnetic self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the daily practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest. Use our special code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps, MAGNETIC.
And we have our big end of year challenge, our authenticity challenge going on right now, where you can ground into your true authentic self, your soul's essence, your soul's desires, and truly manifest the life you desire from that place. You can check the link in show notes or go to our website, tobemagnetic.com, to access and learn more.
Now back to the episode.
What about, so this other question talks into people that have this person has different money values. One person where they prioritize spending their money, what money means to them is very different. So how do they manifest joint things when it comes to manifesting money together or how they spend their money? And I think even when you were saying that about Mendocino, I'm like, okay, what's Max's ideal climate? Would he go and how would you guys navigate that? You know, because I even think of Daniel and I. Daniel really has a hard time with the heat. Like it warmed up today in LA. And he was like, oh, I'd rather be in 22 degrees weather right now. And I'm like, it's fantastic here. And he's like, oh no. And I really know LA will not be our forever spot because it's too hot for him. Like I just cannot put him through it. So I know at some point we'll have some sort of compromised or bridge spot in between that. Or maybe 2 homes in different climates is my ideal vision of this. But what do you do when the values are different?
Well, I think about this a lot because Max and I are similar to you guys, right? Like Max's ideal place is right where he's at. He's on his Venus and Jupiter line here in LA. He loves LA. He would be in Topanga all the time, going to his warehouse, into a shop. Like he is so happy working. And it's the complete opposite. I told him a few years ago, I was like, I want to work to live now. I don't want to live to work anymore. I did that for a really long time. He lives to work. We're complete opposites in many ways, but it's exactly what you guys were both saying. It's literally everything you said in that spot that should be the show notes is the answer to this. We have to sit down together and hear each other's needs and come up with the bridges in between to call in together, because we both have our separate wounding that's going to be blocking whatever we're calling in, right? How do we recognize, even if it's not TBM work for your partner? The craziest thing is Max he was raised with hippie parents in hippie places, so he's very open, right? But he's still such a toe dipper in TBM, even though he watches me manifest my whole life. But he's like open to things like flower remedies. And then he sees me making my custom ones with ChatGPT. Yeah. And so he's like, oh, can you make me one? So it's like where I get to...
Yeah.
Like Noah's blocks and stuff.
I love this.
Oh, like forever I'll be a witch on every side. So people who are like, how do I manifest for others? Start making them flower remedies to gently unblock them. But I look at us and we are so similar in the ways that matter to be in a relationship. We are like deep partners. The thing we love the most are building things together. We love building things. We love building a family. We love building homes together. We love building, like Max is freakishly as into finance as I am. Like we love building things. So that's our greatest connectors, is we're huge partner builders. But in every other way, our style's totally different. Like everything is opposite. So that's what I would say. Like, even if people have two separate money value systems, I don't know what that is, right? Who, like the broke hipster meets the bougie, whatever, whatever that is, it's all programming at the end of the day. But when we get to our authentic selves, now it's like follow the steps that Jessica said, and then find your bridges in between. What are the bridges that are going to make both of you happy? Max was smart. I was looking at Maine, Scotland, Massachusetts, and these were all places Max knew because he loves to be right in the thick of LA, and if he's going to have to spend some time going back and forth to something, those sound like a nightmare to him. He's going to be stuck in those. He's smart. He found our bridge. He put Mendocino on my radar. He found that, and he was willing to do that. Granted, it's a 10-hour drive from Los Angeles, or, you can fly into Santa Rosa and drive 2 hours in. He bridged that for him. That was our bridge. So that's a really good example of that.
It's interesting. So in all of the like Imago books, Getting the Love You Want, there's a concept of like in certain areas we attract our opposite because it's the perfect way to unlock something within us. And so instead of looking at it, oh, I hate that about my partner, it's so annoying, it's whatever, it's like there's something for me here. Not to say that we don't ever compromise on our boundaries, et cetera, all that, but looking at it as an invitation in some way. So I am like the deepest hermit introvert. My true nature is like I'm a hermit in a mountain somewhere, right? And Casey is truly like the biggest extrovert I've ever, like there's a joke of like how many random texts of different people he gets a day. And it's like the average is around 40 to 50 people. I would die. But it's so funny because it was a big rub for many years. And then there was this invitation, and I don't know when or how it happened, where I actually have become more extroverted and genuinely enjoy it. I don't know when that happened, guys. I don't know. And he's actually become a little bit more introverted. So I don't know when that happened, but even when you were bringing up like the money thing, so big spender over here, and Casey's a major, major saver. And again, there was something where I used to kind of course, judge him and like, well, this, and I have all my things. And now I've totally gone to major savor and value in that and feel really empowered. So there's some times where there can be an invitation there for growth.
I totally agree. And I'll even give a further example and expansion around that. I am too, because of finance, a huge saver. I am so safe with money. I always put it to work. I've always been like that. And Max he's very, he's a big gambler, loves to gamble. He loves the thrill of a gamble. And he's a lot more expanded financially in what he comes from. And so like you, there's always been a rub there for us because I'm so safe, he's not safe. But however, when I started to want to really invest in things that could really grow wealth, he loves gamifying that stuff just as much as I do. He does it in a different way. I do it in the like super by the book. I have the most by the book accountant, like because I want the utter safety. I want to be so prepared if there's ever an audit kind of thing, And he's the one on podcasts that are listening to the ways of how, and he's who found, for instance, this thing, cost segregation, because we're in real estate and how to actually maximize. I mean, it's crazy. Like the place I bought in Mendocino originally, every dollar that went into it, I received back in a tax return. And now if I were to sell it for that amount, I've already received all of that money back that I put into it. And I would then make all of the money on top of it that you know what I mean? So it'd be like double profit, right? I'll be the type of person that's like, I don't know about this cost segregation. Like, even though we're working with a firm, I could be audited. He's like, you would have so much money you made. You could hire the tax lawyer. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, he's so, and just like you said, it's the perfect medicine to the invitation of my wounding and his wounding that bring each other out in a non-trauma bonded way that can help us both integrate, reach our goals of manifestations.
Janelle, you picked up on that thread immediately because I had the same thought even back, Lacy, when you were talking about, the bridge that you guys have in Mendocino and Max finding that. I'm like, I bet there is so much medicine and Max going up into this colder climate and this climate that wouldn't necessarily be his favorite. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it too, is like change is our catalyst for growth. And so you have your authentic code, but because we're always growing and evolving, we want to make sure to incorporate that shift, that openness, that curiosity in order to grow and evolve. Where is our comfort zone, and how can we step out of our comfort zone and see the invitation to a little bit more balance on the other side? If you have that polar opposite with a partner, or if you're two different money values or two different introvert, extrovert, or whatever it is, what is the invitation that you're being asked of to embrace more, loosen the reins on more, just be open to more? And so much of that can unfold, especially in the manifestation process while you're doing it together.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think, honestly, we've hit on some tools here that we've never talked about before that are really, even if you're doing this challenge, that you could like put into action right now if you want to start calling in stuff with your partner, your kids, your whatever. I mean, that's a lot of reframes and a lot of tools that could be super actionable for 2025.
One other thing I'm thinking, a lot of people wrote in about, business partners, or they have a partner that they want to manifest certain growth goals or whatever. I think when you're going through and crafting your list or your intentions, especially if you're business partners, getting clear on your whys. Why do you want that metric? Why do you want that piece? What is it going to help fulfill you? And I think even amongst a team, like it's so important. We're doing a big content meeting at the top of the year with the TBM team. I'm like, I want to know all of your goals this year. Like, what would feel so good about your working experience with TBM over the next year? Like, let me learn that so I can figure out how we can like plug and play and work in the best. Because I think when you do that, when you let everyone be in their genius, when you let them do what they love, it just goes bananas. It just goes wild. You get what you want out of it so much. So another little tip there.
That's incredible.
Which is so opposite of like micromanaging, controlling that energy, whether it's a team group, whatever, that is it just so kills it versus just letting someone be in their genius and just like waiting for the magic to happen.
There's also a balance, because people need to be accountable to what they're doing, whether it's a team or even in a partnership. Like, that's why I had that last caveat on there. If it's not moving, if people are not following through with taking care of their side of the street or their blocks or their pain points or the things they need to do, how can you have a loving conversation? Be like, hey, this was the goal that we set together. Are we still on the same pace? Do we still want this? This is why we wanted it. Are we still in that direction? Like, let's keep going. At least you both agreed to what you wanted. You know how you're going to feel on the other side. And if you're not there, okay, let's be accountable to what's going on.
Yeah,
for sure.
Big things, guys. 2025.
Hey, this is great. Are you kidding? This episode, I think, is going to be inspiring for many people who have probably been sitting there like, my partner's holding me back. I'm feeling trapped. I'm feeling like I can't ever reach my goal, my manifestations and goals. So I think this is a really inspiring podcast episode.
So good. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. So beautiful connecting as always. We'll see you next time. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And I just wanted to have a little summary at the end for anyone listening who is tracking, following along. Okay, so how do I do this again? Step 1, craft an authentic code with the other person you're manifesting with. If you see the two of you or the family unit or the team as a group, what is your business authentic code? What is your relationship authentic code? What is your family authentic code? What are the pillars that feel so true and at a soul level when you unite all parts of your team that you're manifesting with? 2, get super clear on the specifics and set your list together. I wrote in our newsletter a little bit more insight of how Daniel and I crafted our list together, but some of the main things that I wrote in there is really about have a first draft where whatever comes up is a yes. Do not whittle down, do not say no, do not judge, don't shut down. Make it a safe space where everyone can share what they want to manifest. Sleep on it, and then come back and refine the list. That's when you get in, okay, do all the elements on this list align with our authentic code as a unit? Are they all non-negotiables? Are any of them just nice to haves? Are any of them coming from ego? Are any of them not a real deal breaker? Then you can start to refine that list. Then you're going to take care of your side of the street. This is when you go about your normal manifestation process, blocking, expanding, align action, doing your internal work, and then come back to your partner, whether they're doing the TBM work or not, let them on their own journey, whatever that looks like for them. And you can kind of check in with them just with a little bit of TBM vocabulary. So maybe you have a monthly check-in, maybe you have every couple months you have a check-in, but start to introduce the term of what a test is, what an expander is, what a trigger or a block might be, what are some aligned actions you guys can take as a couple or a unit. Those are the sorts of things you want to be talking about during those check-ins. Then you also want to keep in mind that loving communication is key. It is not about having all of your needs met at the expense of the other person having their needs met, or vice versa. If you want to compromise, as Lacy says in the episode, you're really crafting a bridge together. So both of you can still get elements of your needs met. And then finally, if you feel disconnected, if you feel off course, if you feel there's no movement, if there's stagnation, if you really feel like the other person isn't pulling their weight, have a conversation, schedule a meeting and say, okay, let's get really accountable. This was our North Star. This is where we wanted to go. This is what we wanted to accomplish and dream up together. And I feel like we're not on the same page anymore. Can we get on the same page and have that conversation again of what needs to happen in order for you guys to get there? The biggest piece of advice I can give you guys in manifesting with another person is to have loving kid gloves on. It can be so easy to see someone else's blocks or their pain points or them not passing their tests or their triggers, and just keep reminding yourself it's not your job to tell them what to do. They are on their own journey. Let their soul evolve in the way that they are supposed to evolve. You can still get your needs met in the interim. And really just have that loving communication. And I also think there's so much beauty in manifesting together because you learn so much about each other, about the relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friend relationship, a business relationship. Like I said, you learn so much about each other, and being able to see each other's truth and their magnetism and their genius and their blessings. And you also see the inner child wounding that may come up. And that can be a vulnerable space for anybody to feel exposed in that way. Even when you're manifesting something that feels so material, like a trip or a home or a physical item. Let's say you're manifesting a car together. It all relates back to that feeling of unworthiness on some level, shape, or form. And so having that compassion for yourself and for the person you're manifesting with to approach it from a really supportive space. Okay, wishing you guys lots of luck in this, and we'll see you next time.